We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody, thank you for coming back. Welcome back. It is Monday, and I am thrilled and delighted to start with this inspiring work here by LB on the creation of Adam. We'll look at the title in a second. Artist Journal, June 5th, 2023, broadcasting to the world from the high seas of the imagination in Berlin, Germany. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, and welcome back. So clearly, this is made by Mario Paint. You can even see the little Luigi figure down here. There are a few very, very interesting things about this. First of all, so clearly a pastiche, as we were discussing last episode in detail at the beginning of the show. We have a definition there, if you never saw that, on pastiche. So this, according to that definition, would seem to be a pastiche of Michelangelo's creation of Adam. There are a few things I love about this work, which really held a resilience over the weekend as I kept on kind of compiling images for this show. There's something just kind of almost makes me happy as a child, this kind of work. Maybe that's, I guess Mario Paint is kind of like a kid's arts program for the most part, and just gorgeous. I mean, again, we see Mario Paint. Several artists have used it, most notably maybe Hasdrubal Waffle, at least from this show. So there are a few things I like. First of all, weirdly, I would argue it seems to be recontextualized a little bit. First, like if we think of Michelangelo's creation of Adam, it's, with all the heaviness of, Michelangelo playing for all the marbles there and, this, poetic, representation of the creation of whatever this is that we are living here, you and me. Now, what I kind of love about this is it takes that heaviness of such a weighty subject and it kind of turns it into, imagine you didn't know Michelangelo's creation of Adam. And I don't think there's a single person here that would not know it, but let's just say that you didn't. What would you think this is? To me, this looks like maybe this is a river, the blue part, and this looks like a river bank, with flowers on it and someone hanging out on the riverbank. And this person looks like they're on like a floatable kind of dinghy here, one of those little floatable rubber boats. And it looks like they're just hanging out in the sun with some beautiful flowers, a couple of homunculi here. We love the homunculi on this show, and even like kind of a, almost like a jaguar or a leopard-like pattern here on the dinghy. And they look like they're in love with the hearts here and everything. So that's kind of fun. Again, almost taking this very famous, famous like body positions and basically recontextualizing it completely. Now, I don't know if that's what LB intended, but that's almost how it looks like. And I love the happy faces too. Again, the lightness. It's a tricky world out there for so many of us and for all of us. So sometimes it's really refreshing just to get a nice happy face. So this is great and just some fun here. There's something very beautiful and it's tempting to say almost innocent feeling about this work. Maybe it's the Mario Paint. One other thing I want to mention here, a really cool thing, which is you see this plane here? Like it seems like that's a cursor, right? And again, this is almost what I want to call a bit of a trend, but I think it's more than a trend. I think it's just something that people do, including myself, which is using the UI. We see the UI, the user interface of Mario Paint here. There's also another thing going on here, and it's kind of described in the description, but remember last week where I actually also started with an LB? As I, remember this as I say it here. And he had used a glitch ROM and then he had processed it through the analog hardware and then created that really gorgeous textures and everything that I was praising and singing how great it was. So here, if you look closely, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but there's almost like a tiny bit of like what I want to call like a glitch, like a snowy glitch, as if this is somehow being recorded on some sort of old television or something. There's a little bit of movement, and again, it feels like a screen record, because this looks like a cursor that's moving across, and this looks like the interface, right? So it's not like he exported this image here. This is the whole, it's almost like we're just, like if you look at Picasso's closely, especially from like the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, but maybe even later, one of the things that's really notable, I think, at least my interpretation, is he reveals how they're made. A lot of modern art is that way. You can kind of see the trail of how it's made, and I kind of like that as well here in the user interface. I mean, it's very direct. I mean, you can basically see, okay, this was made using Mario Paint. Because maybe if you had just done the image, you might not realize that, unless you're familiar with this face here, which LB uses as his Twitter handle or profile photo, which I believe is a default face in Mario Paint. Interestingly enough, this crazy face here. So there are some clues here. Searching for myself, mysterious title, created and animated on Mario Paint for SNES for Super Nintendo, recorded with capture card. So I wonder if that capture card there is, I assume that's what I'm seeing. Like the snowy, almost like that little bit of snowy distortion, which also just brings the whole thing to life. Just a stunning piece. I almost don't want to move on from this piece. Available for 2 Tezos, still 73 left. A beautiful, beautiful piece here. Thank you to everybody who collected this. I put this out on Friday, F-16s. This is part of the Secret History of World War III. And I'm starting to use just some AI sort of brushes or AI abstractions in the background here, and playing with this kind of theme that I've been trying to hammer away at for 6 years, maybe more, of playing with screenshots in the news. It's almost like this whole idea of remixing the news to a certain degree as it comes out. A weird kind of, because we're so powerless, in a sense, with all these decisions that are being made from above. A lot of us are basically, there's not much we can do except kind of stand and watch. But yeah, so that kind of like a little bit of the dream here is to take that, what we're given, what we're receiving, and to start playing with that narrative and start to tinker with it. So I continue the experimentation here. So thank you everybody for supporting on and picking it up. A beautiful cast here of collectors. Just thrilling, actually, to see all this and the support. So I totally appreciate it. There are still 5 left. So again, thank you for all the support there. It means a lot. Continuing on, so just some comments on last show, and it was really nice, the comments, because, a few of my shows, sometimes I just feel like, I could have done better, but it's too late to re-record again. And this was one of those shows, so I really appreciate the nice comments here. And it just shows that sometimes we're not a very good judge. Sometimes we're the worst judge of our own work. That's where, a friend of mine was saying you shouldn't curate your own shows. You should get someone to curate your shows. And I still have mixed feelings about that, but I understand the point, because sometimes bringing someone in from outside to curate that show will create a different feeling, and they'll bring a different perspective. And that can often be beneficial. So anyways, thank you for the nice comments here. Thanks for the review from L'Inquisiteur. A great selection of pieces. I appreciate that. Great to hear from Bazaya. Thanks a lot for the shout out, amigo. Very proud and honored. Thanks also for making this for the NFT culture. Juicy. So Juicy is a Biggie popular song that starts saying it was all a dream. So this was called It Was All a Dream, and we see a little juice box here, and it had Juicy on it. So it is not the clothing brand that I was thinking of, that sometimes, I don't think people wear that anymore, but you'd see it in North America sometimes. I don't know if it really did much in Europe. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on that. But anyways, big shout out to Bazaya. Great to hear from you. And Mick Renders had an interesting comment too, very substantial comments here. Mick Renders, I totally agree with it, what OXDGB said. And this was regarding people criticizing art for no reason, really. And it doesn't make sense that anybody would be trashing anyone's art. Art is subjective in the first place. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. And I think this is very true about art. Like, why would you? It's almost like, and I highly recommend this book, a timeless, the How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, I would call that, if you ever have to manage people, and really if you ever have to work in an office environment or any kind of environment, it's a very important book. Most people don't know how to manage people, and I would call How to Win Friends and Influence People Management 101. Okay, and everybody thinks they can manage, but it's an art, it's something that has to be learned, and oftentimes people just aren't trained in it. So, and just to bring the point back home here, is if you buy or read How to Win Friends and Influence People, chapter 1, if I remember correctly, is never criticize. Because it gets you nowhere. Because all that happens is if I'm the project manager and I come in and I start saying, hey, the graphic designer, and I start criticizing what they're doing, they're not going to listen to me. They're just going to kind of put up their guard, and they're not going to hear it anyway, and they're just going to think I'm dumb, right? That's the reality. So as they say in that book, which I haven't read for 15 years, but as I was going to say, a timeless treatise on human nature, as they say in that book, start with saying what you like about the work, and so all to say, this is kind of because, again, this is something you learn with experience too. The 18-year-old artist with maybe no experience is often the quickest to criticize and to say, this sucks, right? So anyways, continuing on, Rosato, I'm enjoying the Artist Journal, and this was interesting just on his process here. Thanks for the feature. And yes, I'm reusing plenty of my elements. It's possible because I use digital art making tool most of the time when I create NFTs. I used to strictly use different images for each artwork, but now I think that why burden myself? But now that you brought it up, I guess it's time to dig more of image libraries. Again, that wasn't a criticism, or that wasn't saying, I wasn't suggesting you should, by the way. It was just an observation, and I kind of like that to a certain degree. I mean, because if you keep using certain elements like the moon, the banana, and we keep seeing it over and over and over, before long, maybe I used to associate the banana image with Warhol, and maybe now I'm going to start thinking of Rosato. So there is kind of a fun, of burning it into the brain of and getting recognized where people can see instantly that is a Rosato because I totally recognize the iconography, right? So, so all very interesting. And I say, do whatever makes sense for you with design, as I like to say, and I consider art in, poetic design. So art, or design, and then art is in design. It's a form of design, in my opinion. And we've gone in that in earlier episodes here. But all to say, there is more than one right answer in art. There are many right answers. There are wrong answers and right answers, but there are many right answers, is what I'm trying to say. So whatever works for you, I think things are working beautifully for you right now. And also some really nice comment from Manny just on the difference between the artist and the creator we were discussing. So, and so anyways, Manny was just saying, I'll just read it very quickly here. Sometimes people take to Twitter to vent in response to a personal experience without giving much time to sort through how they really feel. There's certainly space for that, but always good to have more than a for or against attitude towards these things. Exactly. And we're going to see that in a tab coming up here. This, we don't know anything is kind of like the moral of the story. And it's sort of like Socrates. At the end of the day, the only thing I know is that I know nothing at all. And that is wisdom, and he doesn't say that part, but that is wisdom, is realizing what you don't know. Because, where we start to get in trouble is when we start to know things and then the ego gets involved. And then all of a sudden you don't have as clear of a view on reality because the ego gets involved. One could argue. And we are all homunculi, Cuomo Pete. So great to hear from everybody. So check this out. So Rosatio. So I tried to use Adobe Photoshop Generative Fill to expand my canvas, and this is the result. It's weird. I love it, and I agree. So let me just show you the original here. I think this is the original. Yeah, you can see the signature here, and there is the moon. There is the moon, and you can see it in here. So it's something like this, and then, or is there more? And then let me just see here. Right, okay, and then it turns into this. So this is the first work. Mixing my images here. Oh yeah, there we go. So this is the first. We'll use this example because it's the clearest. So you see the moon up top, moon at the bottom, the hand. And then this is the expanded with generative fill in Photoshop. So pretty incredible from a distance. I mean, I brought it up so we could look up close because it's actually astonishing. I almost was tempted to start with this because it was so astonishing. You do start to see what I'd consider like AI type of textures, right? Like you see, this was the moon, and then it starts to go into that kind of more blurry AI, but it's quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, one could also argue this is, something you could use for inspiration. I don't know if Rosatio needs inspiration, but you know what I'm saying? Like it could, if you want to make this huge, or if you even just wanted to see what Rosatio's work would look like if it was expanded, here you go. So just pretty interesting using that new Adobe Photoshop Generative Fill. So really interesting to see that from Rosatio. This was also interesting. Jared, who has a very small account, but is a real person. Jared Dore, this came out pretty cool, an 11 by 17 plot, half a Staedtler pigment liner, design made with Universal Ray Hatcher by Peter Pasma, who I just followed this weekend, which is how I found this, once again, because it's awesome. So again, I think we're dealing with pen plotters again here, and you just see how great this stuff looks. So here is one, and we have a couple of zooms or close-ups here, detail shots. And so you just see how powerful and beautiful this is. So I continue to be just totally mesmerized by the plotters. Just a wonderful solution here. Here's another physical rendition. This looks like augmented reality here. This is Kazuma. And thanks, Tokyo Love, for the wonderful card you gave me at NFT Art Tokyo yesterday. So this looks like some sort of augmented reality. And maybe you click on the QR code here and it loads something up and you're looking through your phone is probably what's going on there. So again, let's just see what happens. And then all this other stuff appears. So again, just kind of wild and interesting here from Tokyo Love. And Popple, I mean, continues to draw a crowd at 238,000 views for this Pixelankton. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, maybe it's time, and not financial advice, but maybe it's time to buy all the Popple you can because, 947 retweets. This art has legs, and it's really interesting to see what I'd be tempted to call the popular reaction to Popple's work. And he's also doing a beautiful job of just delivering it here with this nice text, and even just the hashtags are probably pretty smart, and just everything. The whole look and feel is just a seminar here in how to do your art tweet, and no link here and everything. So just really cool to see that. Again, he's getting incredible coverage here. Super Rare Zach. And this comes back to this whole idea of not knowing anything. And as he's saying here, biggest mistake I made in this space was being stubborn in my, personal beliefs early on, right? Another way of saying that is the ego. which we are all guilty of, right? This is how we start out, and a lot of us, and we go back to that, default all the time. Not anymore. If I would have been more open-minded in those first few years, I'd be much wealthier now. Apes, punks only, and of course the Bored Apes went to a fortune, are all worth probably $100,000. Large generative series, I'll stick to my one of ones because of scarcity. A Home Depot trash can, illegal, copyright, X-copy minting a lot, sell those early works while I can. If I've learned anything, it's that none of us really know anything for sure just yet. And that is so true. It's even like, it's back to, like, that's why science is actually such an incredible thing. Because we actually get, and science isn't the last word on everything, but the beauty, the crowning achievement of science from the last 200 or 300 years is it works. It works. So that in itself shows that it is a kind of knowledge, a step towards knowledge. It is not the final word, as we all know. It can't say really too much on consciousness. They keep on, it's limited to the material, to whatever we can quantify. But it is, and that is no small thing, though, that it can go as far as it's gone. If you're a materialist, you'd say, well, science does have the final word on things, but that's one could argue that's an extreme view. But this is what I want to highlight, though, is don't get too comfortable in what you think you know. And that goes for everybody, including myself. And it's kind of something you always need to kind of, be on top of. Very quickly, we talk about Platonism here every so often. If you're looking for like the classic text, it's the beginner text in a sense in Platonism is the Apology, which means the defense, apologia, which is a defense, where he goes to trial. And basically, the reason he's at trial is because he went to the oracle at Delphi, who told him he was the wisest of the Greeks, and he found that kind of strange. And then so he went to certain people in the polis, in the city, and asked them, what they knew and how they knew it, and realized that once with his question and answer, his dialectical process, realized that these people didn't know anything. And then he started to realize that because he knew that he didn't know, that maybe this was the reason why the oracle at Delphi said what they said. So there's your little ChatGPT summary. It's an easy text to read. It's a great one to start with, and that is kind of the lesson of this, so I was happy to highlight it. Onto the works, Kristen Roos, who I believe is out of British Columbia in Canada, and just released 5 works here, Vorticity, and here they are. So they're already on secondary, edition of 20, not a terrible price on secondary. On primary, I think this went for only 10 Tezos, which is pretty cheap actually for Kristen Roos. So here is the first, and they always have this beautiful, warm, really like refined look to them, and just gorgeous colors here. 640 by 512 times 2, color cycling. And here's another one. Again, just gorgeous colors here, gorgeous palette, and gorgeous everything. So beautiful animated abstracts here from Kristen Roos. And let's just take a look at another one. I think this is number 3. So cool little designs here. And continuing on, I can't remember the software he's using. I think he uses Deluxe Paint and other stuff. I think that's part of his thing. I call them retro tools, but he calls it vintage software, which is maybe a more kind of technical term for it. So anyways, here's some more. And here is a final one, Vorticity number 5. So just cool work here from Kristen Roos. And again, still going for reasonable prices here for Kristen Roos's work. They're not super high editions, so he was selling them relatively cheap. Here's another animated abstract by Lucas Lejeune, who I found on Twitter here, Rodgate. And so just kind of cool, what look like vectors, vector software of some kind, creating a really cool kind of complex animated abstraction in black and white. Kind of reminds me of Loacme, I think. whose work I first collected on Object way back when. So cool work here, available for 5 Tezos, and there are 30 left. And Mumu the Stan. So these could all kind of hang in the same room, couldn't they? A Fabric of Society. So interesting title here. Pixel experimentation, 80 by 80, upscaled to 1120 by 1120. And this is available for 2 Tezos, and there are 70 left. So this is probably for the 200 Tezos event here. So let's just give it a full screen and almost just kind of combining here. Nice and simple. Pixel experimentation. Here's another one that was released, and also edition of 20 for 10 Tezos, and there are 19 left, so a lot left here. Just really cool, actually. Love the black and white squares in the middle for contrast at the end there. So very cool. Spectrum weave. We are part of a beautiful fabric. So maybe another, I mean, it's tempted to call these like social commentary through abstraction. Continuing on, Winter Bloom, a view into spring through Microsoft Paint. So more vintage software, retro tools. And this is kind of part of RJ's kind of self-referential works here, where he's showing the screenshot in the screenshot. And again, what do we see here? The UI, the user interface is being shown in the retro tools. So it's a pretty cool, I don't want to call it a trend because it's been happening before, but it's a pretty cool, let's call it a trope. And so interestingly, for contrast from a content point of view, look, we have these kind of dead branches here, dead trees, and then here it looks like we have some sort of leaves here, beautifully rendered with squares. So just cool work. Winter Bloom by RJ, and I'm not sure, yeah, these were only 2 Tezos and sold out right away. So very cool there. Here's another work by RJ, which I hadn't seen before. He posted it on Twitter. So I'm not sure if it's a new work or not, but I think it is because he's been working with the laptop on the chair. And here, and this is probably pastiche here. I don't think we looked at this last time. Interesting empty canvas. I think this might be a work in progress here. Beautiful actual, the gradients on here. And so interesting work. The contrast of this kind of light gradients here with the hard color fill here is quite beautiful. And then continuing on, a work by Stippen Pixel, who is a super original pixel artist, in my opinion. And look at this, almost like a celebration of his family, perhaps. And I think Stippen, and then there's just a playground. So a nice kind of innocent work. The patterning, that patterning on the pants here that we're going to see. You see how it just kind of stays. It reminds me of like a Matisse or a Picasso where they don't worry about putting the folds in the fabric. They just put the patterning on. I mean, you see it here. It's so interesting. And look at the colors. I mean, a blue for the head, black for the clothes, and then this purple for like the structure. So really interesting work here. Also for the 200 Tezos, available for 10 Tezos. There are 13 left. SM40, Street Moment number 40. The mother of my beloved nieces and nephews, she told me, so maybe that's the niece of Stippen. Look at this, and I'm not even really planning this. Like, I grouped these together, but here's another one. How it started, how it ended, QRT with yours. So maybe this isn't intended to show the UI for the final version here, but beautiful work here from Anis Abdin. And I think he's done these pools before. So just a really pretty work here. You see all the gorgeousness that you'd see in nature. And again, we see these pixels in nature just go such a wonderful contrast. As we've mentioned in earlier episodes, this kind of, and the contrast is almost this rectilinear structure with the curvilinear organic nature. So a beautiful contrast. Anyways, I get hypnotized by these works. Here's another one. Lena Eckert, who is an artist I never saw before this weekend. So just a really cool animated abstract here. A lot of cool abstractions this weekend, as you can see. I mean, pretty wild. I don't even know how you would go about making something like this. So pretty impressive. Very cool. And just interesting spirals. I mean, this goes for 1.5 minutes. So this is just a sample. Very cool work, Lena Eckert. And here's Renke with some nice animated abstracts here. And just a few, basically two red spheres turning into 4 red spheres. And they are a Tezos each. And there are 185 left. So a lot of people participating in the 200 Tezos event. I thought this was kind of a cool dark work. I'm sure you know the artist Spugels Maskinen Jackpot. And Spugels is wrapping up this series here. What is it called? The Closet. This red and black series. So you got to love how quickly Spugels Maskinen is working. I mean, I think he started this series maybe a month ago. And already it's all done, wrapped up, good to go. Another series under the belt. So that is really cool. And I loved just the feel of this. I mean, it's kind of pretty dark, right? These skulls coming out of some vending machine. Pretty dark work and listed for 0.75 ETH, no bids yet. And here is another work, Afterverse. And I think it reminded me of the email work, but I think this one's different. I don't think we've looked at this work, and this was on Manifold XYZ, so the skeleton getting dragged into the computer. And chair skeleton 320 by 240 and then upscaled by 2. And this 34 minted at 0.05. So it's called at 1.7 ETH. So, the open editions are still selling if you're making stuff that people want to buy. There is still a market for editions on ETH. Coda Nakazono. This was also for the 200 Tezos event, 200 for 1 Tezos each. And so another just cool work here by Coda Nakazono, kind of organic shapes here with, again, that contrast of these hard edges here. So very cool and nice colors there too. Continuum number 116, available for a Tezos. Rinny Fish, Fever. And we have some cool music here. Let me play this. Some more fun. Looks like someone riding a dragon or maybe something like that. So great color and even the stars and just wonderful color. Nice use of GIF and everything. Again, I believe these are made on Procreate, which is pretty cool. By Rinny Fish. Buy now for 4 Tezos, edition of 50. So you see also for the 200 Tezos event. This was a pretty cool work by Ed Marola, Coronation of a Dead King. Edition of 40 for 5 Tezos. So getting very textured, I guess, for lack of a better term. Really interesting work here. And I guess the king is there, and there are the people bowing down to the king. A big bird looks on, and here are the people and some skeletons and everything. Wild, wild, wild work here. There is the king at the top of the stairs. Very cool work. And another one from Mangran. Actually, Mangran put out quite a few works here. Special Creature 65. And so this, I thought, kind of stood out a little bit. And these are selling for 2 Tezos, 1 of 1. So that is pretty cool. Are there any left? No, it looks like they are all gone. Not a number is interesting. Wonder, does that mean, you could still buy these for like 2 Tezos. So these are still available. That is amazing. So don't let the NAN throw you off here. There are 1 of 1s available for 2 Tezos of these pretty cool works here. I think these all came out, these special creatures, these last 10 this weekend. So very cool there. Louis, Mekong River, going with the flow. I thought this was pretty interesting, just an interesting processing of a landscape here. And yeah, just interesting color and everything. Interesting texture, almost has a 3-dimensional feel to it. Almost with some rasterization, like screen print dots, that you'd see. Just kind of interesting. 2 Tezos, edition of 100, and there are 90 left. Then Santiago and Human Kernel put together a new tool. It's not working on my, that's just me. I didn't load anything in here, but I wanted to show you that you can buy it. Drag and drop and camera draw and circles draw. So this is available for a Tezos. You can get this tool here and you can start using it and it'll make results like this, which is pretty cool. So Ilay is highlighting it here. And so that is available. And also from Santiago, we have Burning Spaceship, where you and I make art for telepathic dogs. This is also on object for the 200 Tezos event. I'm loading it up here because otherwise it may crash my my microphone loading up, because these are 10,000 pixels. I believe it's 10,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels. So it is an enormous file here. So another cool abstraction by Santiago. Just cool, just using random shapes and bringing stuff in, churning stuff through the digital meat grinder here. And continuing on, a stunning work, really, by Yuri J. This is actually minted on super rare, but it's being bid on Foundation. So this is an interesting thing. I learned this as well on my first, when Legojo put together his Foundation World. So you can mint basically anywhere and Foundation will show it. So it's pretty cool in the sense that Yuri J minted this beautiful work on super rare, but it could still be listed on Foundation. So just so you know, because sometimes it can be confusing if you're making work for a world, that can be done. So you can also mint it on Manifold, and then you can sell it on Foundation. So that is cool. So again, it's beautiful work here. Thoughtful breath of fresh air and sincere watering activities. So kind of a strange, unusual title, let's say, and just cool combination of works here. There's something kind of grand about this whole composition, and I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's kind of, there's a greater sense of space perhaps with this kind of depth of field thing, which makes it look like it's super close here. These strange drawers. I think the swimming pool is also pretty fun, and it's already got a bid on it. And look at these great patterning in here. So Yuri J continues to develop here, and it's looking like that's a really nice looking work, instantly recognizable, and going for 0.25 ETH from Unknown Collector. And this is in the Tomorrow and Tomorrow show. Remember we were looking at this? There was another work that we were seeing, Larson Warner. And Evelyn O reached out, and she is actually the person who curated this, from my understanding, from what she said. So that is pretty cool. I brought it up here. So this show here, we were looking at, and so, yeah, remember we were looking at it for the rare work? So very, very cool. Again, it just looks like physical exhibition with digital artworks at Larson Warner, Stockholm. It all looks very professional, and so just really cool. Continuing on here, let's speed up a bit. Found this in Hasdrubal Waffles collection, who is always interesting to look at what he's buying. Can't talk right now, I'm too busy, call me back later. So Too Busy by Kel1 Art. And I thought this was a really fun, just cool composition, and, kind of weird with the whole, whatever's going on in here, almost like there's a hole in the wall and everything. Just interesting, almost like the RGB nail polish, maybe, not sure. And then there's the unicorn, just interesting work. Even just the way the hands are. 3 Tezos edition of 5, so pretty reasonable price there. A new work by Lydia Moon with Guru Hyena, and this is an edition of 25 for 8 Tezos, so also for 200 Tezos event. And here it is. I think there's supposed to be music. I couldn't figure out how to turn it on, actually, because my volume is on. Click for music on off. I'm not sure if it's working on my browser here. But either way, cool work here. I wish I could get the music going. So let's see. Anyway, it looks great is what I'm trying to say here. So cool work from Lydia Moon XX and Guru Hyena. And also a new work by the Kurt Hustle Collective here. And just a very fun baseball card. There's something about this one that really kind of grabbed me. Maybe it was the Jimi Hendrix music that he was playing on Instagram with the work, which was pretty hilarious. And there's something just very intense about the face and everything. And again, the trading cards look great. Seattle Hustlers, so that is cool too. So that is available for 10 Tezos, edition of 20. So also for the 200 Tezos event, I assume. Red Dinglebat. So let's just see. There are 13 left. And some works by Kappa Sage, Little Kappa, PlayStation 2. So this is kind of interesting and very modern, kind of self-referential because it looks like the video game was designed by Kappa. So that is interesting. Great composition. I mean, Kappa has always these very dynamic, ambitious compositions, doesn't he? I mean, look at that. A really interesting composition. Little Kappa there. And here's another one. Again, very ambitious compositions, very grand looking. And there's an artist being crucified with no hand. So that is brutal. Some McDonald's references and maybe some Pepe references. So all sorts of wild stuff going on here in Kappa's work, and some fries. So very cool, edition of 10. And let's just see, this has not gone for sale yet. This was just minted. And a cool work by Myth for the 200 Tezos event. So I guess this sold out pretty quick. Edition of 10. So let's just see what happened here. So yeah, gone in basically a little under a day at 20 Tezos each. Interesting work with like Neptune's trident. Neptune's trident here and a cigarette. So just an interesting work, 33. So kind of mysterious there. Vogue magazine by Greco, edition of 10. So we saw this work before, so I assume this is like a remix of sorts, as if it's in a kind of plastic sealed edition of Vogue. So that is kind of fun. Edition of 10 for 10 Tezos each. Let's just quickly go to Greco's profile. Yeah, so here's the model horse. So interesting way of kind of reusing the work and then reselling it. I think that's really cool, actually. I mean, this is the thing with digital. I think digital artists should be reusing, as we were discussing with Rosatio. It's part of the nature of digital art that you can kind of always remix and reuse images in a way that if you cut out a banana out of a magazine and you put it and you glue it to a work in the physical world, you can't reuse that unless you take a picture, but then it starts to get pretty cumbersome, right? So very digital is what I would say. Gloom tube, face scanned while returning bottles. And this is an edition of 20. And was this also for the 200 Tezos? Look at all this. For 15 Tezos each. And so let's look at the work here. Face scanned while returning bottles. So someone returning bottles, probably, I guess, not at a grocery store like they do in Germany, but more like a back alley. And then the face scan, and there's some pixelation here within the red. So this guy's just trying to return his bottles and non-threat. Oh, man. So the dystopia in Gloomtube's work continues. Edition of 20 for 25 Tezos. So interesting work, as usual. Here's a beautiful, beautiful work by Morlacos, also for 200 Tezos. Two Tezos for an edition of 100 for the 200 Tezos event. Kind of looks like Muhammad Ali and maybe, who is this? Robert De Niro. Exactly, Raging Bull. Another movie I'd like to see, actually. So, very cool. I'm actually not sure who the other guy is. I kind of looks like Muhammad Ali, but I'm not sure. And I like the lights in the background, too. Interesting composition, I might add here. And again, these gorgeous, let me just zoom in here. Look at how awesome Morlacos, like, look at how interesting this style is. Like, pretty interesting technique here, where you just kind of fill it in. And here's, I think, Robert De Niro. And look at the eyes. There's kind of also kind of trademark Morlacos eyes here. So very interesting. How are we doing here? Going to speed up a bit. Dylan, Anima. So another cool work, kind of, is it Fernand Léger that it kind of reminds me of distantly. Really nice kind of looking work here. So this is an edition of 1 for only 10 Tezos. So a nice one of 1 for only $9.06. So hard to beat that. Burka Byram, The Summer of Matisse, also for, so these are edition of 40 for 5 Tezos each. So it kind of has a Matisse feel to it, doesn't it? And classic kind of Burka Byram shapes here for, again, the 200 Tezos event. So lots of people participating. There are 7 left. If you hurry, you can get one. And here, Diego Barro, a couple. So this is an edition of one for only 12 Tezos. And here you see Diego using the ballpoint pen in Procreate, a ballpoint pen in Procreate, and putting the figures in red and the background in blue. So nice piece here from Diego Barro. Great to see him on the scene. And White Solitude, Bloody Fight. So continuing with the AI works, also for the 200 Tezos event, edition of 100 for 2 Tezos each. Pretty incredible. The brushwork or the splashes that you can make. Again, this is AI as far as I understand. I mean, this is pretty impressive. So interesting color too here. Bloody Fight. So usually has 2 figures in the works here, as you can see. So I haven't actually looked too much at White Solitude recently after that first bout. That's a really nice piece there. I wonder how many are left. Let's just look really quickly. There are 88 left, so you can get it for a pretty good deal here. Venta, The Chase. So this is an edition of 100 for 2 Tezos. So almost everybody's participating here. I might need to put out a work here. So classic Venta, really nice AI work with these almost very 3D looking figures and interesting color here too. What is the title? The Chase. And it looks like this figure here is running, and we have some skulls. And let's see how this is doing. 72 left. So, the art is selling. It's still a pretty healthy market out there, I would say, despite whatever, bearishness is out there. Art continues to sell. A beautiful work here by Trueface. The encyclopedia animals escaped from the books to visit me during the day. So probably AI, as we've discussed earlier. AI poem and image by AI artist Trueface. Huge work, 7680 by 4200. Really nice piece here. Kind of would hang well with Venta, although qualitatively it's a different kind of texture feel to this work here. Almost has a bit of a Francis Bacon feel to it. Maybe it's the 3 paintings together here. Very interesting piece here. Nice piece from Trueface, and this is edition of 13 for 39 Tezos. That's on secondary. So this sold out for $15.38 on primary. Interesting price. So very nice there. And Ile has a birthday sparkler cake melt, and this is also for the 200 Tezos event. So very fun to see the whole community here participate. So here is just another cool AI artwork of this kind of melting cake here by Ile with sparklers and everything. So I always like food work. Food's a whole interesting topic in and of itself in art. AI Vanitas. And we're almost done here. Lily Illo, This Moment Over All Things. So a cool, also for the 200 Tezos event. So a very beautiful piece here. I like the ratio here, kind of more of a horizontal piece, someone drinking coffee. Something very kind of serene about it. Cool chairs here too. Expression over all things is fundamental, a special work for the 200 Tezos event. And this sold out really fast, actually. This is 4 Tezos each and the edition of 50. Look, this was minted at $9.51. I remember seeing that and thinking I had a lot of time to pick it up. And then before you know it, the tweet goes out that it's all gone. Look at this. In 2 hours, it was basically gone. I guess Art Addict picked up a few. So yeah, a few people buying a couple of copies there. So yeah, but look, it's selling. So Lily Illo is doing fabulous right now. Here's another just beautiful work that she put out, Waiting to be Heard. So kind of an echo of a person here. Just very cool work. And Leprochant Neuralink. So a cool physical sculpture, handmade sculpture. So polystyrene, plaster, modeling clay, cling film. A pretty nice work here. Edition of 15 for 4 Tezos each. Pretty cool. So nice physical work from Leprochant. And also this was posted by MF Drew from La Creme de la Creme. There's only one AD. So I wasn't sure where this came from, where it might be minted, if it was physical or digital. This looks like, so this is actually probably someone else, AD. So it's a pretty nice work. So Drew just posted this, and this is probably by AD. So still figuring that one out. Here's another physical work by Mark Belden. And I've shown a ton of Mark Belden's work, and I just love the work, and the colors are incredible. There's something just very kind of precious and beautiful about it. Again, color. The magic of painting is found in the color so often, and here we see it again. Look at that chair. Is this a chair? It is. I mean, it's beautiful. He's posting old works, 2015, oil on paper. So super interesting artist. I mean, surely this person is represented. DM for inquiries. Like, I don't even see, and seems to have a podcast, painter. I wonder if this person even has a gallery, this incredible painter here that I've been showing over and over. I sure hope so. I mean, how many followers? 18.6, so 18,000 followers. I mean, that's pretty good on Instagram. I mean, I just saw a strange thing past 100,000 followers, which is incredible. Greco, I'm back. So Greco is painting, and there's the horse again, and this time a physical painting, so that's very cool. And yeah, looking good, and you can see a lot of his classic. It's identifiable as a Greco in the physical, as a physical painting, as it would be for a digital. And that's your friend. That is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me again, and until next time, take care.